I'm speaking on behalf of the American Council of Engineering Companies of Maryland. ACEC has 44 member firms representing about 6,000 or more Maryland residents. Our firms have been pleased, no, honored to work on projects such as the Woodrow Wilson Bridge, ICC, and the Port of Baltimore expansion. Those projects have something in common other than being economic catalysts. Those projects are virtually done, as you just heard. And what they have in common is that there's virtually nothing behind them to keep the economy growing, to keep jobs growing, to keep moving forward. Many of us have stopped hiring. At best, we're frozen. Many of us are even worse, are cutting staffing back. Some companies are fortunate, and what they're doing is using offices in other states, or sometimes even transferring people to other states where sustained funding seems to be in place. Without a return to more predictable federal and state funding, 5- and 6-year programs will be on a roller coaster ride, and short and long-term planning will be impossible for our industry. In closing, let me say that we are not asking for make-work projects. Our firms are invested in Maryland because in the past, the state has been committed to a quality transportation system across all modes and a strong, robust economy. And Marylanders have had a vision and political will to provide funding required for such a system. The American Society of Civil Engineers and their objective rated the infrastructure in Maryland a C-, just above a D. And while you drive around, you may think it's not so bad. But for us, the contractors and the engineers, we lift under and look under the hood. We know what's under the hood. And this infrastructure needs some attention. So this is not about doing what's just good for business. This is about work and creating jobs. This is about providing a kind of a stable funding that will allow both the public and private sectors to fulfill a quality of life and economic well-being, which has been Maryland's hallmark. So thank you very much.
This is an issue that's not just important to the contractors and the engineers and also obviously all the laborers, but the entire business community in the state of Maryland. The Greater Baltimore Committee has been a top priority of the Greater Baltimore Committee for many years. Jim Diniger from the Greater Washington Board of Trade is also very supportive of it, and their Board of Trade has indicated their support, as evidenced by their cans that we're shaking here today. But also we have a complete complement of the business community, and I'm pleased to introduce one of our other great representatives, someone who has worked very closely with our START Coalition, helped us found the START Coalition, has testified with me many times in Annapolis about the need for transportation funding. Kathy Snyder of the Maryland Chamber of Commerce.
It's so great to see so many of you down here. Did you have any trouble traveling on the transit to Annapolis? Did you have any trouble finding parking or avoiding potholes or anything? Annapolis is great. I live here. I hope the mayor's on here. God. That being said, the Maryland Chamber is pleased to join with the Greater Baltimore Committee, the Greater Washington Board of Trade, so many local chambers throughout the state of Maryland, and so many other organizations to support the idea that we need to restore trust in our trust fund, and we need more revenues to help fill the needs of our residents and business community throughout Maryland. By investing in our infrastructure, we will create jobs that are badly needed by Marylanders here in our state. We need to improve our infrastructure, the roads, the highways, the bridges. We need money for mass transit. We need to be innovative and creative in doing all this. And it's going to take leadership. So I hope that everybody here today understands that people who are elected to office respond to the voters in their districts that they hear from. It becomes critically important for everybody here, all your friends, your employees, chambers of commerce, other business organizations, to be contacting your legislator from your home district to talk to them about how important this particular issue is. Investing in our infrastructure will improve Maryland's competitiveness. It will create jobs, and it'll help us all to get to and from work, to and from the store, and to and from our kids' soccer games. So thank you for coming today. I'm glad it's not snowing. Thank you for coming and join all of us at making sure you're talking to your legislators and to the governor. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. Of course, Kathy talked about jobs, and that's something that we certainly care much about, and we see signs about that. And let's hear from some representatives. Let's hear from Tim Butera of the Laborers Union. Tim?
Thank you, Don.
Thank you, Don. Tim Butera with Laborers Cooperation Trust, and also a member of Laborers Local 710 in Baltimore. And just want to add our voice to the coalition here. The laborers have been strong advocates for transportation and infrastructure spending, both in the state and on the federal level, which is also important. But you know, this is a quality of life issue for our members. This is not a union or non-union issue. It's not a Democrat or Republican issue. This is about moving Maryland forward and making sure that the state can be welcoming to industry that wants to grow here and that'll continue to provide jobs for all of us. Both those of us who build the roads, use them. You know, we've got our fellow Marylanders. I commute from Baltimore to DC every day, probably spend 20 hours a week on 495, 95, 695, and you know, we're ejecting money out of our tailpipes that could be spent on building these roads and transit systems in the state. And you know, as that money goes up in smoke, people sit and wonder how they're going to pay their mortgages and how they're going to put food on the table for their families. And that's why we're here today. So thank you for the invitation, and we look forward to supporting the effort going forward.
We talked jobs, we've talked infrastructure, we talked about the importance of this to the business community and also for economic growth and job creation. But obviously the one group that we haven't talked a little bit about are the motorists who actually are using our highways all the time. So it's my pleasure to introduce Lon Anderson from AAA to talk about their support. Lon?
Don, thank you so much, and thank you for including AAA. You know, the Pew Foundation recently did a study, and what they said was that America is in danger of losing its place as the economic leader in the world because it's not investing in transportation infrastructure. Simply put, it said, you can't run a world-class society on a third-rate transportation system. If Maryland is going to continue to be competitive, and you only have to look across the Potomac River to notice that Virginia's got about $6 billion worth of projects going. If we're going to continue to compete, we've got to put money in transportation. I want to congratulate all of you for being here today. This is an amazing crowd. To have this many people come out to say, I don't mind paying a little more at the pump if, in fact, it will be spent on transportation. Great message. Thank you all for coming out. AAA represents about 900,000 motorists in Maryland, and they tell us they don't want to pay more in taxes, but a major reason is because they don't believe that those gas taxes will be spent on transportation. I was a member of the Blue Ribbon Commission. I can tell you the number one recommendation we had was restore trust to the Transportation Trust Fund. By the way, I love the gas cans. AAA normally is in the business of bringing gas to our members, so this is a little different for us. Thank you all, an amazing group. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Lon. We thank the support of AAA. We're going to introduce some other members of our START Coalition. And again, if you are not active with the START Coalition, we urge you to become active with us. We've got a lot of work to do over the next 80-some days. It's certainly very important for us to make sure our voices are heard. We're delighted to have with us today Doug Duncan, former Montgomery County executive, who's with the Suburban Maryland Transportation Alliance. Doug? Michelle Welly, representing the Central Maryland Transportation Alliance. Michelle? Linda Green with BWI Business Partnership. Linda, thank you very much for being here. Again, get in touch with us, get involved with us. The time is now for our legislators to enact transportation revenue legislation. It reduces travel time. It results in unparalyzing the congestion that we're faced, creates badly needed jobs, guarantees state travel in the state of Maryland. Today's event is strictly the first step. We must press our legislators and our governor to develop meaningful legislation. We must continue to show up at our legislators' doorsteps and press them to enact legislation. We must appear at the hearings in large numbers to show that there is another voice other than just the opposition that we constantly hear about. We cannot wait and afford to wait another year. The time for action is now. Thank you for being here. Join with us as we move forward to make sure that this transportation investment occurs in the state of Maryland. Thank you very much for being here.